Hi everybody, welcome to episode 27 of Run to the Hills. Today we'll be having a chat with Anji Andrews about a new book, Running in the Midpack. Eddie and I will have a catch up and we'll be talking about what ifs too. Hi Eddie, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you? Thanks for waiting while I made my brew. It's always a better podcast if you've got a warm cup of tea next to you.
Water.
Water. That's just not going to cut. That's what cows drink, as my mum always says.
Yeah.
How are you? How's the running? Tell me about the marathon. You've been quiet about that.
Well, Strava was quiet. There was a little delay with Strava on Sunday. I saw a bit of social media meltdown.
Outrage.
Yeah,
Outrage.
People's Garmin. I'm not too sure if it was Garmin issue or Strava issue. Anyway, the people's runs were taking a bit longer to go up onto Strava. But yeah, it was great. We set off about 8 o'clock, jogged up to a place called Merton, and then ran down to the coast, had a Costa coffee, got our supplies sorted. Then we just headed down the coast, which is such a beautiful day on Sunday. Then we have a few little picnics on the way and then back up through the nature reserve. Oh, it was exactly 26.2. So I think it was about 4.5 hours or something. We were out moving time, actual probably time if you included coffee
19
stops.
hours.
Yeah, maybe something like that. But it was good. But my goodness me, I just thought, I'm really tired. This is a long day out, for anybody. And I did on Sunday evening, I did kind of think, well, I've had a hard day today. The rest of the earlier in the week, I did this 5 times 5 minutes, not the 6 times 5 minutes. And that was good. I did also, me and Rex, we went out for a fast 30 minutes. There was a Greener Miles challenge. And basically you had to run 30 minutes as fast as you could in theory. But I bottled out really, and I took the dog with me, but Rex just wanted to run. So we were like 6.5 minute mile or something for half an hour. I know. I was wrecked. And then
Do you have Rex on like a lead?
Yeah, around my waist.
Is it Rex on a lead or?
Yeah, like a leash that fixes around my waist. And normally he'd be terrible at that, but he just ran and ran and ran. It was absolutely amazing. And then we did an interesting on Tuesday. My friend Neil, because he's kind of got a coach, you may know about this, but they wanted to set him a benchmark. They give him a 5K to run fast, so then they could kind of work out all his training paces and stuff like that. So I kept him some company for that. For the first mile, at least, we kind of separated. And that was good also. Yeah, we did a kind of like say a fast 5K. So now he's got his training times and I got a good workout. Running 20 minutes roughly fast is pretty good. So that was my training week. Yourself?
Another big week. I did crack at the weekend. I had a big week and so I sort of work. I have Sunday as like it's not a rest day because I still train, but I only train in the morning and then I have the rest of the day off. So it almost feels like a rest day at the moment. And then I got to Saturday afternoon and I had like my final long session to do on skis, and the snow was really slushy and thick and horrible. And I had like 2.5 hours to do, and I did an hour up. It took me normally sort of my first up to get to the top of our first little mountain takes about 45 minutes, and it took me like an hour and 2 minutes because I was trying to pick up my skis through all this like slush and sliding down.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to the top. I was like, that wasn't fun. And then the ski down, it was like surfing down on like this slush of disgusting. It wasn't even snow. It was like,
you're not selling it to me.
I am not. I was like, I hate this. I felt like my legs were going to fall off. And so I got to the bottom. I was like, do you know what? I very rarely do this, but I'm pulling the coffee and cake card. I was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm really tired. I'm not going to cry, but I'm on the edge if something happens, and I'm just done. I'm done for today. And so I rarely use that get out card, but it's got to be quite. And I was like, no, I actually think I need to have a little moment, sit down and put some calories in. Yeah. And actually, that's better training right now than hiking myself back up there. Potentially. And with the skiing as well, what I'm learning is like, as the snow gets more tricky to ski on and you're tired, the fact that you could fall or twist your knee, and now I'm starting to go, it's not easy skiing it down anymore as I could just used to do this, but like kind of, if it was hard, just point your skis, go down and try and take a bit of speed off. Now it's like I'm actually having to turn and it's harder work. So I'm I'm calling time. I'm done. And then, as we all do as runners, I spent going, afterwards, and I was like, was I really that tired? Should I have done it? I missed 45 minutes of a whole week of training, and I spent like a good 3 hours going, should I have done it? Oh my God, is that it? Is my season over? Because, I don't know. Oh my God. What?
You find as soon as you had the food, though, I find food is such a big mood booster.
Every other day I get it wrong. And I'm like, Eddie, when do you feed yourself? And I'm a busy mum saying like, right, everyone's got their lunch and then we've got to go there and I get there and I'm like, right, so where's my training? Here's my kit. And I'm like, oh my God, I haven't eaten enough. I know I haven't. And then and then you're on I'm like, Eddie, learn. So I am really trying. And I don't mean to be self-promotion of the cheer charge bars, but Tim sent us the best supply of cheer charge bars, and this week it's slightly changed my life because I've got like this fuel that I can take anywhere with me, and it's got these new flavors. They're delicious. I'm having to ration a little bit, like 2 a day, Eddy. Otherwise, you're going to become a cheer charge bar.
I tried the ginger and dark chocolate one. That was nice.
And people around here, because it's hard now, it's really hard to get stuff from the UK to France. And people are like, "You got some supplies?
Contraband?
You got some cheer. Can you get me some of those? I want some of those." Definitely could start some sort of hike the prices up. €6 to bar. So yeah, I had a good week, and I'm doing a little bit more running this week, which is a shock to the system, but it's time to do a proper sport, isn't it? Let's talk about the competition.
So it was a scavenger, wasn't it? I can't remember what find mud, a red car.
Now I had a northern friend who I went skiing with, who is a big podcast fan, who said it's not actually even pronounced red car.
Redcar.
So technically, I'm not sure about that one, Gary. She was outraged. She was like, "This is not as good. I don't think you should be allowed to use that."
Goodness,
people are investing too much into this, I think.
I was quite chuffed with myself. I thought, oh yeah,
it was very good. It was very good.
So we got a garden ornament, farmyard animal, and a road sign. But we thought it was quite, because the podcast comes out on a Friday, and majority of people will probably listen to it over the weekend, maybe on one of their runs. Thought we'd give people an extra week to send us pictures. We really enjoyed the ones that came in, but we just thought the task was so big that we needed to give people an extra week to get their stuff together. So that's what we're going to do. So next week's show, we will do the high-tech random selector and announce the prize winner. So
this week, we were delighted to welcome Anji Andrews onto the show, who had co-authored Running in the Midpack with Martin Yelling. A really great, it's really hard to describe this book, isn't it? Because it's not a guide. Well, it's a mixture between sort of like autobiographies, guidebook, stories, scientific fact, everything that you can imagine about running that you know or have experienced is in this book. I mean, there's a chapter for everything, for everyone. I
was curious how it would flow I sometimes think running books are like a reference tool, and as an audiobook, I wondered how it would work, and it was fine. I really enjoyed it, and what it did do would kind of prompt me then to go back and read the kind of book and maybe use that as a reference tool.
And we both said when we both started reading it and when we were sort of prepping to do the interview, that a lot of it, when we were reading it or listening to it, we were nodding our heads and going, And it's almost really like you can relate to, as a runner, to so much of it is like, oh yeah, I've done that. Oh yeah, we've all been there. We've all done that. Enjoy the interview with Anji, and she'll tell you how you can buy or listen to the book at the end of the interview. Hello and welcome to Anji Andrews. I feel like I know you personally because I've listened to you so much on the Marathon Talk podcast, but I've never seen you in person. So we feel very privileged to have you on our Run to the Hills podcast. And we're not only looking forward to talking about your new book, which you co-wrote with Martin Yelling, but also finding a little bit more about you as a runner and as a person, because often with podcasts, people feel that they know you really well because they've dipped in and out and you've done interviews and all sorts of things, and from the book as well, I didn't actually know a lot about your history. So we thought we'd start off the podcast, if you're happy with that, just talking a little bit about your running history, where it started.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. It's so lovely to especially speak to someone who's just recently finished the book as well. So thank you, Eddie. It was a lovely introduction. I started running I was a bit like later in life running. I think I was 27 when I started running. And for me, it was like, I was just bored of being at the gym. I had to rewind a bit before that, I was a competitive dancer as a teenager.
This is what I was really interested in. It was Gloucester in the book, and I was like, we need to know more. Are we talking with sequins and high heels, or?
Yeah, so I was national tap champion when I was 13.
Wow.
Oh yeah. So I was like, I did modern theatre, modern stage, and tap was like my thing. And I danced from being tiny. And it was one of those things where, like, if you know me, I'm like the clumsiest person in the world. And I think my parents like shoved me into dancing just to hopefully like get some balance learned. And I was just really good at it. And I look back at it now as an adult and say, like, it was joyful, but it was quite stressful. And I think a lot of like issues that came later in life were because of dancing. But also I think it prepares you for like a world of competition that some people who come to running later in life might not necessarily have. But I think I just had that work ethic from, you know, putting the practice in, from being I danced from being 4 until I competitively stopped when I was 17, I think.
Conscious decision to stop?
Well, alcohol, but no. There was
boys,
like a few things happened. Like I got like, as a dancer, if you get any kind of serious long-term injury, you're just like on the scrap heap. And I tore a hamstring like training to. I'd been offered a scholarship to go to London and like go to a stage school in London when I was 13 or 14, and I was training through the scholarship. You have to do like a pre-training thing, and I tore a hamstring. And what happens after that is that you go to auditions, and these people are so skilled in like spotting something that's not right that you would go to the front of the line to perform whatever your bit was, and they would see straight away that you had this injury or like an existing thing, and you would just be sent home. And I just got a bit tired of like spending my day training for something that might be over in 20 seconds if someone spotted that injury. But also just lifestyle. I think like Eddie's right, it's like a bit of boys, a bit of alcohol, and just kind of, I just fell out of love with it really, and started instead like just partying really. I did like a few years of university life, and then fast forward through that and decided like to get fit again and started going to the gym. But at the gym, I just had I really enjoyed the gym, but I just wanted something that I found hard. And to answer your question, Gary, like the first time I went running, I remember just running to like my local Tesco and back, and it was probably like not even a mile, and I was so wrecked. And I thought, this could be my new sport because it's hard. And then throughout the course of probably like within 2 or 3 years, I was running half marathons, and really, I think I say this in the book, actually. I say like the reason I love running is that it still sometimes doesn't come easily. And so it's that lifelong challenge, if you like. So that was a very long answer, sorry.
Do you find any like comparisons between the dancing training and running? Is there anything, a kind of common thread between the two?
Consistency, definitely. The consistency of training was always like, you could always tell the people who hadn't practiced enough, and learning rhythms and routines of things was always something that I could just do even from being little. And it definitely like improved like balance and coordination skills that I've needed. But also I wonder if, and Gary, you'll know because you've actually seen me running, I'm very kind of like 4 foot, like bouncy type of runner, which means I've permanently got sore calves. But I wonder whether just like the way that I run might have in some way been dictated by that past in dance. I don't know. And
was there a particular highlight as a dancer? And also, I suppose, as a runner, have you got any kind of memories that were kind of real standout moments?
Dance-wise, I think I was just too little to take some of it all in. Definitely getting selected to go for scholarship was like a major thing, although it didn't end very well and I ended up not going. But as a runner, like, it's strange because I think some of my running reflections as I've gotten older have been never about like, you know, finishing, not that I finished first very regularly in anything, but like never about like standout performances or times. They're mainly experiences that I had, you know, like London Marathon 2 years ago, you know, doing like my first ever marathon I ran with my husband, and like things like that, or like park runs with friends, even like stuff like that are the standout things for me, for sure.
Do you want to know a secret? That I too was a dancer until I was about 16, 17, and I went to ballet school, and everything you're saying, I'm like, yep. Yeah. that to be like, and I was the same as you. I got to the point where it's like, you go either way, you commit to this to be a professional or you don't. And I remember that moment when I was like, the already all those years of dancing had this is such a hard commitment. It's such a hard sport. It is a sport, isn't it, to be in? But I never feel regret that I stopped, because I feel it's made me the person that I am. And I don't think that I'd have done as much running and all the other stuff I'd done if not only just the performance element it brought to my life, but also that the show up, this get up every day, you show up and you like when I was at ballet school, you dance, you know, you've got the flu where you still dance, or you it's so, and I think nowadays it's a bit easy for people to you know, and I expect some of the things they used to do to us at ballet school, I'm like, I bet I'm not allowed to get away with that.
I know,
now. But it's taught me like such resilience and such not just dedication, but also discipline. I think probably the same with you. And as well, I think it prepares you as well for like quite a lot of judgment as well. Like we talk about this in the book, and I think people, when they come to running, especially later in life like me, are probably not used to people having opinions on their performances. But if you've got that from being a child, you're just like, well, yeah, of course people care. So yeah, but that's a good little bite of secret information there, Eddie. Thanks. And so how has the past year been for you? Can you tell us, have you carried on running in sort of the lockdown? When did you start sort of writing the book? Did that happen during lockdown? Could you tell us a little bit about the process? Because that's something I couldn't quite work out, because I listened to it and Martin is talking through it. How much is written by you? How much is written by him? And sort of how you came about writing it, and then how you put it together.
You've asked about three things there that I want to really get into. Is that all right?
Okay, let's start at the beginning. When did you start writing it? Yeah, running in lockdown. Let's go from there.
I'll do running in lockdown. Okay, so basically, no, I didn't. The last 12 months, like my running just like fell off a cliff. I had pretty bad overuse injury at the start of last year, which kind of coincided with lockdown. And I'm the only person in the world who was really happy that London Marathon got cancelled, because I got injured 2 weeks before, and I was like, yes.
But no one can run it. If I can't run it, no one can.
Yeah, it was like, thanks for cancelling. No, I was in a really ridiculous place with my training, and I will hold my hands up to this as a person who's written a book and told people not to do all of these things. I was in a really bad place with a lot of things to do with my running, and ended up with like this really bad overuse injury that meant I was out for like 6 months of last year. Wow. So my lockdown experience was not like others in terms of like, because I had an injury that, because everywhere was closed, I couldn't get a scan, I couldn't see a doctor, I couldn't see a physio. It went undiagnosed for like 2.5 months, where I was just basically put in like a moon, you know, like the boot thing. I was put in one of those and on crutches, and I didn't start running again until I think it was like the end of September. So it was 6 months beginning to end. It was difficult because, to answer your other question, that was the time when we were writing most of the book. So you asked about like the process of writing. It took place over 2 years. So we already had like a version of the book before this happened. So I don't know if you wanted to, I mean, I can tell you about how it all came together at the beginning.
Yeah, love it.
The idea initially it was my idea initially, and I had long sort of wanted to write something or give my runners something that would answer all their questions. So people that I coach are all mid-pack runners, and they're all people who are dedicated runners who make the same mistakes, and probably the mistakes I make as a runner as well. And I just wanted to be able to give them something, and that something didn't exist. So I'd sort of like had this idea rolling around, not for long, just like a matter of days, really thinking maybe I could just write something. But I've written editorial and written social media for years, and so I'm used to writing things that are like 1,000 word limit. And I hadn't written anything of any length for a really long time, and I thought, how do I do this? Because do I start with a manuscript, or do I go to a publisher, or like what happens? And full disclosure, I did have a contact at a publisher. So I had written a chapter previously for a book, which I think Gary's read. Have you read Outrunning the Demons by Phil Hewitt? I feel like
No.
No. So Outrunning the Demons is a collection of stories about people who've been like saved from something by their running. And I was approached to write a story for that about my experience of having PTSD and overcoming PTSD through running. So I'd done that, and I'd also been a contributor to Ben Smith's 401 challenge book. And so did have I did know someone at the publishing company, but I didn't know what I was doing. And so I contacted them, and they came back and said, yeah, we think this is like a gap in the market. We've been waiting for an idea like this for a while. And this is how you put a proposal together. I mean, I had no idea. So I'd started just working through these ideas and putting this proposal together. But at this point, nobody knew that I was doing this. Like, my husband was like, oh, we could be onto something here. This sounds like a pretty good idea. This is where Martin comes in, because Martin and I, as Eddie said, I don't know if we'd started recording when you said, but I've worked with Martin on the Marathon Talk podcast for coming up to 3 years now. Feels like longer.
Wow.
And Martin and I have like this relationship where, you know, everyone has someone in their life who's just brutally honest, and Martin's mine. So like if something's a bad idea, he would just say it's a bad idea. And at this point I was like about to send in the final proposal, and I rang him and said, can you read through this? Will you tell me if it's rubbish? And he rang me straight back and said, I think we should do this together. And he said he had been long like sat on a similar idea. He'd written tons and tons of articles for magazines that were similar to what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And plus he had been approached by publishers to do something like this in the past and just didn't have time. And he said, how about we just like redo your proposal and we'll just see if we can do it together.
And then how did you then come to sort of, did you take it chapter by chapter to write it, or because each chapter is sort of a little nugget of amazing information that you've sort of broken down into, these are the things that we all do as runners, and this is how you either stop doing them or this is how you learn from them. Did you sort of take it by chapter, or did you just sort of ad lib?
It was totally in phases. Like the first year of writing, we did 3 little holidays together, and we wrote together side by side.
Okay.
So we had like long discussions on the phone, which would be like Martin kind of like going off on really long waffle tangents, and me like bringing it back to some sort of semblance of reality, and vice versa. I'm sure he would say the same about me. So we had, in that first year in 2019, we had like, I went and stayed with Martin and Liz and their family for a few days, which was amazing. Like being in Dorset, we always seem to hit really good weather. Did the same.
Always sunny in Dorset.
It's the first time I'd ever swum in the sea in this country.
Well, you've never been to the North Sea, Angie. What?
Well, do you know what I have since though? I'd done like a few trips down to Dorset, and then we did like a weekend, a Monday to Friday in France as well, where we stayed at this really nice place, worked on a training camp together, and then had these waffly conversations at night. And we'd put together a version of the book, which looking back now, some of it has remained the same and some of it doesn't exist anymore. And then lockdown came, then the whole process just had to change. So I'm sat here now in my attic study writing room, and I haven't seen Martin in real life since a year ago today.
And it's not I mean, you can't tell that in the book at all, in the way that the finished product is, it flows and it seems to sort of have a natural, the thread of it all the way through. It feels like a very fluid narrative. You wouldn't ever be able to tell that. But you can tell that there's deep connection between you two in the book. That's why I was like, I can't tell who wrote what. It just feels like almost one person with a whole lot of experience.
Well, that's what we really wanted that to happen. I'm really glad you've said that, because that was what we were really worried about, because the way that it happened, particularly with lockdown, was like a lot of our writing just took to like Microsoft Teams or FaceTime calls, or like honestly doing things at like ridiculous times. There was one chapter that the training chapter, Eddie, if you've read the whole thing, that was formulated like in very much like last minute panic in a way, because we lost one of the files and we were on our final edit, like rewriting that at like literally like 1 o'clock in the morning at one point, and we were like, we don't want this to look chunky or to look like, oh, this is Martin's bit, this is Angie's bit, and thankfully we managed to overcome that by the editing process. I think allows you to do that, because we were just sending each other snippets of things or going into like a Google document and changing things. And I think like this is one of the funny points really about the way that we're forced to write remotely, was quite often I'd go into a document and I'd be writing something and Martin would come into the document at the same time and change it while I was doing it. And I'd just be like, can you not do that, please? but equally, I did that to him at certain times as well. So, but that was always like, to come back to your point, was like, we wanted this to just flow as if it was like one conversation with someone that you could trust.
And I said that to you, didn't I, at the start, that I really felt like by the end of it, I listened to the book because having time to actually, as you know, sit down and read a book. And also, I think it is the sort of book that you dip in and out. You're like, oh, let me just find that chapter on. But I really felt like it was a real conversation with somebody, totally non-judgmental. And funnily, you should say that you lost the training section, because I actually thought that was one of the best chapters. The way because I've got a sports degree, I've got a PE teacher degree, so I've had to teach sport, GCSE, teach A level. I explain to clients how you write a coaching plan, but the way that you've written it is beautiful, and you break it down so simply. That's what I said to you at the beginning, wasn't it? Like, I don't really want my clients to read this book because it is so many beautiful nuggets of information. But the way that the training is, especially, is if people are looking to sort of build their own training plan or to verify, if loads of people I know download the training plans from the internet, and some of them are, you look at them, you go, my God, who could do that training plan? But if you got your chapter on your book and had a look and said, well, here's my foundations, here, how am I putting all that in? It's really well written, and it's sort of the language you use, but the way that you describe it is fantastic. I've never seen it written like that. And if I was still teaching kids A level and GCSE PE, I'd be like, read that chapter.
Thank you, Eddie. That's like, it's such a big compliment, because one of the things that we really wanted with this book was to not like scare people or patronize people or both. We're completely aware that our audience was always hopefully going to be people who have running as part of their lives anyway. This is not a book for beginners. They can find stuff in it that they like. It's not like for people who win races. It's for everyone in between. And it was like, we don't want to give people a bunch of information that they already know, but also we don't want it to be like a coaching manual that's really stiff. And quite often during that writing process, we were able to like say to each other, nah, this is getting too serious. And that's why there's quite a lot of like little silly, like aside jokey things they're things that we had said to each other, and we said, let's put that in and see if the editor still let us have it, and would leave it in there. One of the things which I think hopefully is reflected, and you've mentioned there about our relationship, is that Martin is my coach. I think some of like what you'll find through the section, we wrote a section on race reflection about like afterwards, like, don't ever like judge your performance on the day, and make sure you put your washing on first at the very least, and things like that. And
have a bath first.
Have a bath and have a beer and think about this on Tuesday, that kind of thing. And that a lot of that reflection chapter came from the conversations that we've had as athlete and coach. When so I was like with Martin, then with another coach, and then back with Martin. And in that interim was like me not making good decisions, because then when I went back to Martin, it was all like me having complete autonomy, making better decisions, but also having these really reflective, important conversations that lead to better running anyway, because you're happier. And that hopefully is like the thread of like what you get through the whole book.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed it. The mix between a training and then I suppose the index section at the beginning, so you can just kind of dip in and refer. And like Eddie said, just listening to the audiobook, it definitely did feel like you're on this kind of a story or a journey. It wasn't just like the law of running or something like that with this kind of big running Bible. It had a real good mix. For our listeners, who is the Midpack?
I'm glad you've asked that, because quite a lot of the comments when we first released the book, it's only been out for nearly 3 weeks, but a lot of people were like, oh, well, I can't class myself as a Midpack. I'm much slower than that. And I'm like, no, the point is everyone can the Midpack is a place where you're drifting in and out of all the time. And actually, one of the working titles we had for the book was Moving in the Midpack, because nobody's ever stuck in one place in the Midpack. So we saw Midpack runners as people who identified as runners, spent money on their racing and their shoes and stuff like that. They had friends, connections, communities, relationships in running. It was a big part of their life, but it wasn't everything, because they're people who have regular jobs as well. And also for us, it was about, as I said, that movement in the Midpack, where some days you might count towards a team prize, so you might have like a standout time performance, but other days you show up and you've got a hangover and you're just going to jog around with your friends, and it doesn't matter, because running is still part of you, and it's a part of your identity. So we definitely want, and have said this like every interview we've done about the book, like, don't judge being a Midpack runner on any finish times, because even right down to like the first day of research, we looked into participation figures and how much like finish times generally were slowing down. And to us, that was really fascinating, because Martin, for those who don't know, is an ex-elite athlete married to a double Olympian. And so he's always had performance-related feedback on things, but actually to see that the growth of running is through people actually getting a bit slower. Is a really, that was for us like, okay, these are the people we want to write the book for. I think there are elements of like being a runner and having running as part of your identity that, again, like if you look at the other extreme, people who are really fast and winning races will go through some of, especially the psychology stuff that we delve into in the book as well. Like I am friends with the athlete Hayley Carruthers, and I sent her a copy of the book last week because I know like there's elements, even as an elite athlete who's like going to the Olympic trials, that there's things that I know she'll have been through the same as me. And like, I'm certainly never going to go at the Olympic trials, but like equally, I would say that hopefully there's something in it for everyone who identifies as a runner.
I really love the part about that you did, the psychological part about beating yourself up all the time about your training or your race results and stuff. And I listened to it almost with relief that I remember after I had my third child and trying to come back into shape and pressurizing myself to be who I was before, the kids, and you're never going to be like that again. But I almost had to go through that whole process of that beating yourself up and that hamster wheel of trying to be the runner that you were before, and then coming to the realization that you're not going to be that again, but the version of the runner that you're going to be is almost better, and that faster is not necessarily better. And so I listened to it with like almost like a little crying heart, thinking, I remember feeling like that so much, and I'm so happy that I don't now, and that I've come through that, and I'm content with where I am. I'm sure I'll go through that cycle probably again, but that really resonated with me. And I'm sure it resonates with so many people, especially at the moment, that, we're constantly trying to outdo ourselves as runners, and that actually being content with what you've done, and like you just talked about, the reflection on the performance and how you got there is so much more important than what that time says at the end. And that will make the running relationship, which you and Martin spoke so well about, being a constant in your life forever and ever, it's almost like your friend, isn't it? Keeping that relationship smooth. Yeah, I really could relate to that. I thought that was brilliant.
Chapter 2, you talk about motivation, and my goodness me, the past 12 months has been a big test for a lot of people's motivation. Yeah, any advice for people out there who are just kind of struggling at the moment?
Honestly, like, to be brutally honest, I just think that if motivation for running is like something that you struggle with, like, just do something else for a while. I really do think like running should never be something that you beat yourself up about ever. And again, like this, I suppose, like links back to the psychology chapter. And we had 3 lead sports psychologists that we worked with on that chapter. who've worked at every level of the sport, and motivation was like a factor that kept coming back all the time. And I think for me personally, like my running has constantly been interrupted by injury and illness throughout the years. So I've never, ever, and I can honestly say, hand on heart, never lost mojo for running, because there always seems to be a disruption that I'm coming back from in some way.
Yeah.
But I get like, I see it in my husband sometimes where he'll continue running, don't get me wrong, if he doesn't have an event. But if he has something to train for, then he really goes for it and he gets really into it. I've coached him like since we met, and he's still like this week, even though he's not training for anything, he's like, oh, well, what shall I do this week? Because he likes to have, his motivation is very driven around routine. So I would say like it very much depends on the type of runner that you are, but if it's something that it is becoming a punishment, stop it.
Yeah.
I would do like little quirky things, like if you are bored of doing the same route all the time, just run it in the opposite direction. That can be like a restart. Because it's like a workout for your brain as well, because you'll get used to where all the little inclines are and stuff. And especially during lockdown, everybody's probably like me, like running the same hour-long route every day and stuff, or meet somebody who runs at a different pace to you. Meeting someone who runs slower than you is such a good motivator as well, because you get a buzz from like kind of almost helping them to run in a different way, and also you're allowing yourself that process of like slowing down and just enjoying the ride. So I would just say either stop doing it or just change something.
And give yourself a break. Don't beat yourself up.
Yeah.
Don't fancy the yelling 5 times 3 minutes, or was it?
Now, come on, Gary, it's 6 times 3 minutes.
6 times.
Everyone knows this.
Sorry.
The yelling classic.
And what about chapter 3? You talk about rest and recovery. I know you have kind of struggled with injuries and stuff like that. Has that been a problem for you, giving yourself the proper rest and recovery?
Yes. This is like we spoke before we started recording about like the things that you feel guilty writing about because you do badly. And during like the whole rest and recovery research and then writing it, Martin was like, does any of this resonate with you, Angie? Because you're terrible at this. And one of the things
Martin
was, like,
throughout the book, honestly.
No, I'll be completely honest. Like I've had really like spells of like just sheer exercise addiction over the years, and even through injury, transferring that addiction from running to something else. So like last year when I was injured, it was an overuse injury through running, and so I then started just overtraining on the bike. It just doing crazy things, and quite often if I'm completely broken, my husband will be like, what would you tell me to do? Surely it would be have a day off and eat a scone.
Yeah.
And it was like, that is definitely something that I've struggled with. And part of that, I guess, like coming back to the dancing thing, is like dancers are tough and they train through things. And so quite often I would ignore stuff. And you've both read the book, you know, the concept of the dickhead button. I just press the dickhead button and just get on with it. And so it was like making bad decisions, but sometimes through thinking that it was an okay thing to do, because runners are tough and they have to just get on with it. But certainly something I've learned, particularly through the process of getting that injury, coming back from it and writing the book, is the importance of rest. And I'm really kind to myself now, and I make sure that I have those like full, complete rest days that we've written so much about.
I loved your idea of the rest day, which is what I do. And I put on a pair of jeans on my rest day, and the kids often go, Mum, why are you dressed up today? And I'm like, I got jeans on, a little bit of mascara, and it totally, I was like, my God, that's like what I do. If I have a rest day, this was, I thought, one of the best tips out of the book was like, make it into a thing and mentally switch off from running, so that you're not like, I should be running. Oh my God. And this is when I normally do my session and I'm at home, and oh my God, all my 8 weeks training is lost because I'm having a day off. Instead, just do something so you're not a runner, which I know it's so sad. I put my jeans on and get like dressed basically. And I have a shower in the morning and I brush my hair, and I'm like, this is a day when I'm not athlete Eddie. I'm, I just do, and I spend more time doing stuff that I wouldn't normally do. And I kind of just totally take as runners, we're so focused. Well, and especially when you're busy and you've got kids and you just like that narrow. And actually now I've taught myself, I just step for a day. It's almost a relief to step out of that box and just be like, I don't need to think about it. And it's almost mentally as important as physically giving yourself a break. It's just like, just step off the hamster wheel and breathe and be normal.
Yeah, because like people that I coach quite often like use their rest day to go to the gym or do some gardening or do like a heavy DIY project. And I'm like, that's not rest. No. And equally, I was the same, because I would spend that day like planning next week's training, or in my case, like writing an article about running, or, you know, like something like that. And so there's never a complete break from it. And it was actually Professor Andy Lane, who was one of our like lead contributors on the whole book. Actually, he was fantastic to work with. And he said, what are you doing on your rest days? And I was like, well, I go for a swim or I go to the gym. And he was like, well, you're not resting. Like, you need to actually even rest your brain. And he was saying, someone who was one of his clients, he forced them to always go to the cinema on their rest day because they would like have to switch off. But now we're like, remember the cinema though. Like, that's such a dream.
I like it. Every now and again, say on podcasts, you'll get an interview maybe with an elite athlete, and they tell you what they do after, say, their big event or on their rest days, and follow a lot of them on social media. Once they've done their workout, they're kind of on their bed binge watching Netflix. Yeah. And quickly, I suppose in chapter 4, you kind of go into the training stuff, and we referred to the classic yelling workout. Is there something that you'd say would apply from the 5K right up to the marathon?
Yeah, he's not paying me to say this, but I would actually give the yelling classic to people, and I give it to a lot of people that I coach as well. Like, if I get it in my workouts from Martin, I'm like, oh, here we go. Yeah. But I do give it to people as well, because I do think that if you want to use it as like as a marker for your training, it's a good place to start. So for people who don't know what the Yelling Classic is, just probably explain. It's basically 6 times 3 minutes, roughly 5K pace for your efforts, off 90 seconds jog recovery, and then usually like 15 minutes easy either side of that. So it's a good workout, but I think Martin often gives it to me at like the start and end of a training cycle, because you can see in those 3-minute efforts what that pace changes and what it becomes and feels like. But also I think it's useful to chuck in. I remember I had it in a training cycle for a marathon, quite near the end, because it's a sharpener as well. Yeah. So it's a workout that I really like. But the other one, because I love running on the track, and like that's one thing through lockdown and then getting injured and everything, I miss running on the track so much. And if you were going to do like a track style workout, I love something long, like 6 times 1200 or 400 meter jog. It's a really long workout, but by the end, like you found yourself out by then. And like I said, like mentioned my husband to our coach, he's more like an off-road trail runner, like much of your audience, and he would still go and do like a long track workout like that during like the cycle of ultra training, because it's all about endurance at the end of the day. So I would say 6 times 3 minutes, or 6 times 1200 or 400 jog if you want like an old style track session.
Cool. I've actually got 6 by 3 minutes in my plan tomorrow. It was all I could think about today. I had a 2-hour run this morning, and I was like, oh my God, tomorrow I've got to get these. I love a long run, and then the thought of like, oh, my hip flexors, I've got to get them moving again tomorrow. Yeah. I love it because you can hold any pace for like 2 minutes. It's the 3rd minute where you meet your maker and you're like, I've either done this really well and I've paced this, or this is going to be the longest 60 seconds of my life. And like you said, I do it quite regularly, because you can do it any pace. It doesn't have to be super fast, but it's such a good duration that you have to, holding that 3rd minute.
And holding that 3rd rep of 3 minutes as well. I feel like you get
once you've done the third, once you've done the third, you're like, I'm on the homeward straight. The kettle's boiling. I'm almost there.
It translates to anything. So you could do it as a hill session even, or whatever.
Undulating hills. Yeah. 3 minutes. Well done, Martin.
I quite often have it down as a 5. Knowing in my head it's going to be a 6, but it makes it a bit easier. And then even last time I did it, it was 5. It was 4, and then we said we'll do half of it, and then we knew, once we started, nobody was going to ease off. yeah, where can people buy it? Available. I know we've downloaded the audiobook and I've got the physical paperback too.
So it's you been buying them all, Gary, is it?
Bought 20 copies.
I know, bless. No, it's available everywhere that you buy books online, and we are currently #1 in the athletics chart on Amazon, which is and it has been every day since it came out. I know it's only been a few weeks, but it's just far beyond any expectations we had, which is incredible. But Amazon, you can get it on Waterstones Direct, Foyles, WH Smith, all the usual places. If you go to Bloomsbury Direct, they often have like little deals on it where it's a little bit cheaper as well. So it's bloomsbury.com/midpack. But we really encourage people as soon as they can to get back to the shops when the shops reopen and go and buy a copy from your local bookshop. That would really mean the world to us if you do that, because there will be so many bookshops where if you contact them, they'll order it in for you, I'm sure, and you can have it shipped out. But, you know, for us, like, one thing we've really missed is being able to go into a bookshop and actually see our book in there. That's the one bit of sadness that we have about it. And we will get to do that. And it's like, we would really like people to do the same and support their local bookshop at the same time.
And it's also the sort of book that you'll have on your bookshelf, and it'll be a well-thumbed, or by the loo, a well-thumbed copy that you can dip in and out forever. You know, there's so much information. And when as I was listening to it, I was like, I want to make a note. Oh, how do I make a note? You know, I want to remember this bit, because it's sort of thing you want to highlight, and then just so that you can remind yourselves of all the good information in there. So is there going to be another book?
That's like everyone's question at the moment, the pressure. I don't know. We would love to write more words together. I think one thing that really came through for us was right at the start, we went for a meeting with Bloomsbury right at the beginning, and we met our publisher, who was just fantastic and really guided the whole process, because neither of us knew what we were doing, clearly. And they were really supportive, but in the beginning they said some co-author relationships don't survive. And so we were like, it's all right, we don't really like each other anyway, it's fine. And but no, we did have that kind of worry of like, maybe at the end of this that we won't be friends anymore, and we'll just have this book that hopefully was going to be a success.
Awkward to promote, because you're like,
exactly. And I think as we do other stuff together, so like we work on Marathon Talk, and I work on Martin's charity Stormbreak as well, so we juggle a lot of things together, and the book was like throwing something else into the fire. And so I think we both really wanted to see how that would go, and we're still friends, but also
I didn't want to ask.
We still wanted to be able to learn about the process of writing as we went through. And so for me personally, it took a while for my brain to come back to being creative in any way. It took quite a while. I remember coming into like the final edit and thinking, oh, I'm never going to be able to write anything again, and especially not about running. I never want to find out or write anything again. And then as soon as my brain started waking up to it again, you kind of have these new shoots of creativity. And so we've talked about doing something else together, but we really just want to enjoy where we're at with Midpack, and you know, really celebrate the success of it. And
I only asked because it's obviously been a success, you know, with limited promotional, you know, availability, and and I just thought it was such a great book. I was like, there's obviously like space for more, and there's so much more. Every chapter you could have written a whole book about. Thank you so much for giving up your time for talking us. I feel like I need to go and read the book again now with this like added insight.
Yeah, so you need to get a paper copy and just write all over it. Please, we encourage people, just write in it. Like, we're not precious about that. I'd love to see people like writing and highlighting exactly like you said. And it's certainly, like you said, isn't a book that you have to read in order all in one go. Just go and pick in and see if there's something that appeals to you from the index and just crack on.
Well, cool. That's awesome, Angie. Thanks so much. Really appreciate you giving up your time. Yeah, wish you loads of success with the book.
Thank you for having me, guys. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks, Angie. I hope you enjoyed that. Yeah, listeners, let us know if you've read the book and if you enjoyed it. Right, Eddie, you've been creative.
I haven't been creative. I haven't written something, but I often think on my runs, like, what are we going to chat about that's sort of topical with our listeners this week, and something I'm feeling, which I often think if I'm feeling it, then the rest of all the rest of the running community are feeling it. And I had a slight panic this week. I don't know if anyone else is feeling it, about the fact that the lockdown is easing a little bit and people are starting to make summer plans and racing plans, and the world is going to start coming back to normal, and we're going to start moving around and seeing things. And I felt a slight anxiety about that, about it's been so long now, and I feel I've been stuck in this sort of training cycle for nothing for such a long time. I almost don't want to come out of it because I'm a bit frightened of actually putting myself on a start line, because it's been so hard, hasn't it? Like staying focused on training for a race that's then cancelled, and I started thinking, like, people starting to make, like, what summer can we make some dates, and I'm like, oh, I'm not sure that I'm ready to. I'm not sure I'm ready to race. I'm not even sure if I'm ready to go back into real life. Go to places. Are you feeling a bit like that as well?
Yeah, I am. I think I mentioned before, I'm not really missing races as such, but some are going to happen this year, which I am looking forward to. But then there is that anxiety of how it's going to look, and that manifests in a few ways. Say Valencia at the end of the year, there's a lot of logistics involved in that. So I've got anxiety about booking flights and accommodation again, and then maybe not being able to travel. Or I think there's some talk about potentially having a vaccine passport or something like that. So there's lots of things whirling around. So yeah, quite anxious. Looking forward to some of it, but yeah, definitely anxious about the more expensive stuff, at least.
And I as I was running today, I was like, I think, Eddie, you just need to let that go, ride the wave of the slight anxiety of how am I going to manage this? How is this going to happen? And just kind of let it will happen. It will happen in whatever shape or form, races or not races, or life or not life. We've lived it all through now. It's not going to get any worse, and slowly life will come. It's not going to suddenly come back. And I think I sort of taught my slight higher recovery rate, heart rate, that it was meant to be down and going. It's not so. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and someone's going to say, right, so you're racing this weekend, and so you need to get all this together and sort all that out. It's going to be slowly. And as I was running, this song came on, because I do random Spotify.
Okay.
Don't listen to music very much, apart from if I've got to do something really dull running. As I was running, this song came on, and I know with Angie, I came clean that I was a closet secret dancer in my youth. I also used to sing a lot. I used to be a chorister at school. I know. So I do love a good ballad. I love a good song. And this song came on in these lyrics, and I'm going to read them to you. And I told you not to laugh, and I'll try not to cry. But I thought the lyrics were really evoked how I felt. And I thought, I bet a lot of people feel like this. The song is called, for anybody who wants to listen to it, it's called So Will I, and it's by Ben Platt, who I'm a big fan of. And here are some of the lyrics. You say, what if things start changing? I say, we'll be changing with them. We'll just sing a different melody and dance a different rhythm. You say, what if I give up? I say, that is the one thing I'll never let you do. You say, what if someone leaves me and they leave me empty-handed? I say, losing only teaches you not to take things for granted. No, I can't just bring him back, but darling, I can hold your hand and promise you that the sky will still be up there and the sun will always shine. The stars will keep on falling for the ones who wish at night. The mountains won't stop moving and the rivers won't run dry. The world will always be there, and so will I. And I just thought that was just such a lovely, it was just so, it so matched exactly how I was feeling when I started thinking, it's like, nothing's going to change. Yeah. Everything's still out there. Everything here is going to stay the same. And whatever happens, if races don't go to plan, if, things, I think it's going to happen to a lot of us, we're going to toe the start line with great anticipation of these things. And I think it's going to be a sort of tough getting back into not only life, but sort of racing life as well. But sun will rise, the sun will set, and the mountains will be there. So I quite enjoyed that. Do you know? And I think you quite enjoyed my creative corner, didn't you?
I did. I enjoyed that. And I'd add to it, just give yourself a break. It's been it's so kind of overused maybe, but what a year it's been.
What do you got planned? What do you got planned for this week coming up?
This week. All right. So no marathons, luckily. But we have got tonight. Yeah, you tell me, what should I do tonight? On the session for this week, it's either 3 times 10 minutes with the same kind of pace as the 5 minutes. So that kind of threshold pace, with a 2-minute recovery. So it's still so it's 30 minutes of hard work.
Yeah.
Or 4 times by 8 minutes. So slightly more minutes, but the smaller kind of intervals as such. So they're the choices. I think I'm going to go with the 3 times by 10.
Oh, really? I would have gone with the 4 by 8. It's my absolute one of my faves.
Yeah, okay.
It's the 4 by 8. But I always think, because I like it that it ends up 10 minutes. So you get 8 minutes, 2 minutes, and it's just long enough that it's like a steady mile pace with that little bit extra strength on at the end.
Yeah.
Nice 2 minutes recovery. It's quite a lot of recovery for an 8 minute, because you can't go all out. It's a strong effort, but it's not a 3-minute rep, is it?
But this would be like a threshold pace. So that's probably slightly slower than your 10K effort.
Yeah. So you're going to be recovered in that 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Whereas I find 10 minutes I do as an uphill effort, but I probably would never do that on the flat. I just would, this is my personal thing. I just find that slightly too long. It would become more of a steady effort than a threshold effort. Or I do the 8 minutes first.
Yeah.
3 by 8 minutes this week, and then put the 10 minutes. Or totally mix it up, 10 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes.
Well, I'll do them both.
Oh my God.
The plan is to do them both. And then on Saturday, because I'd like to, I want to run with friends too. So Saturday, I'm going to run with Neil again. And he's got some session where it's like 15 or 16 miles, but he's got some surges in there, different paces.
Nice. I love a long run with efforts. And that is,
this 10-minute one, it's because I've always got an eye on the tarmac. So I think if I want to run a fast, flat marathon.
Yeah, I mean, for your Bob Graham round, this is,
Can you imagine doing 10K pace at any point on the, maybe actually.
The last mile.
Yeah. I don't know. My
goodness, training for that last mile.
I'll be pretty chuffed if I'm just doing anything other than a shuffle then. Yeah, what about you? Yeah, what about yourself? What have you got planned?
I've got a heinous treadmill session to do that I've been putting off all day, and now I've got to do it tonight.
Tonight? Oh my goodness.
But it's quite long, and I just couldn't fit it in. So I thought I'm actually going to just do it tonight, when it doesn't matter how I can just focus on it. And then when I finish, at least I can just have a shower and lie down. So it's
do you have a TV or a laptop or anything you can kind of distract yourself?
Not on an effort on a treadmill. No, I will probably put that song on repeat that I just read out. When I'm doing a session, I like to just focus on the blood coming from my eyeballs. Yeah. If I'm just doing recovery session on my bike, I do put I either put something on to watch or listen to a podcast or something. But for this, I'll just focus. I'll just have music or silence. I just listen.
Yeah,
I quite like going deep into my head in a session, as you can tell when I've got the kids and everything. There's so much noise. There's always something going on. There's always work. There's always somebody that wants something. So I actually quite like in a session just to not to go into that place. So I've got that to do, and then once that's done, I almost can enjoy the rest of the week, because that's my worst session, and then the rest is all quite nice. I'm going to do a couple more skis. It looks like it might snow this weekend, or it might be rain, so the season's going to go either way this weekend. If it rains, that really is kind of the end of skiing, because the snow will be awful. Or
but then you'll get all your beautiful trails will just open up then, though, won't it?
This is it, or just ice. There'll just be ice for a few weeks. If it snows, I'll do a bit more skiing. But then, from next week, really keep getting that running back going. And it's hard because it doesn't feel natural. My legs feel really heavy, but I know that's what, I've just never done it before. So it's all new. And I know that's what to expect. And it's going to take a few weeks before I'm like running around thinking I'm a runner, rather than, oh God, I feel like I don't even know, like a womble. That's it. I feel like a womble.
It's nice, isn't it? When you, the other day, I just head out the door and I just felt like I had a little skip in my stride. It was great. Well, other days,
Spring.
it takes you like a good mile to get moving. Yeah, some days
Mile takes me like 40 minutes sometimes, Gary.
You need Rex. Honestly, you don't get a chance. He just drags you out the door.
I have the dogs, but I don't have them on the lead because
Yeah.
I actually think Lindy would kill me if I tried to run with her round. If she saw something, that'd be it. It would all be. I don't think I've got the core strength to be able to. Anyway, funnily enough, I am talking to a lady all about Canicross for the podcast next week.
Yes.
And I know she's keen to get me and Lindy on the Canicross trail.
I'd
Might have to send
it.
her a video of Lindy and she might go, oh no, that dog. I think that dog needs a little bit of training first before you try.
Yeah, I'm curious with Rex and all that because he's hot and cold with other dogs. Sometimes he's fantastic, and other times he's either anxious or he just hates them. I'm not too sure what it is, but he gets quite aggressive. But I had a run out with Lisa actually, a rare kind of shared about 6 miles with my wife, and for the last mile, I'm not too sure it was, but she ended up with Rex. And I was struggling to keep up with her. I'm thinking, my goodness me,
He's
when
talented.
he's working, we were going up this hill near where we live, and I was like, oh, I've got to actually work quite hard here just to catch up with him. But
maybe Rex is the future of the Canicross on the podcast, not Lindy.
Yes, get him on.
Anyway, everybody, have a great week. I'm Eddie Sutton.
And I'm Gary Thwaites.
And let's run to the hills.